my gosh, Adrienne, when you told me who the artist is this week, I got so excited to revisit all my old favorites. Don't Let Me Get Me, Just Like a Pill, Who Knew,
No,
Got to Get This
Tom.
Party Started.
Tom, Wild Pink. Wild Pink. Coming up
Right.
next, yep, hope you listen to the right albums on the world's most genteel music podcast, Courtesy Listen, and any other essential recordings.
Sharing our thoughts along the way.
Some of those albums will be good,
And some will be bad, but they all deserve
a courtesy listen. All right, Tom, good evening. I'm excited for this episode to discuss not Pink, Wild Pink. Let me know your general thoughts. Where are we starting from with this?
Sure. Well, for the record, I did listen to the correct artist. That was a joke. Yeah, it was inevitable that we were eventually going to dip a toe into the 2020s, as frightening as that is to some of us. So I'm glad that you broke that ice. And yes, Wild Pink, certainly a band I have never heard of. Before you announced it on our previous episode, that is not something I was aware of. I will just say up front, I think not just amongst the few listeners of this show, but amongst people, our friends in general, I feel like I have a reputation of being, unfairly negative, a hater, if you will. And I would just like to say
I wouldn't say a hater. I would say you like what you like.
Yeah.
And that's it.
But I would just like to say, first of all, I think Wild Pink in this regard is in a really tough position just because every episode we've done up to this point has been, either just like a classic band or a band that either you or I have a very sentimental attachment to. Mm-hmm. So they're up against really stiff competition.
Right.
And I've really tried not to compare them to those bands in my listening because A, comparison is the thief of joy. But B, that is just an impossible comparison for them, an amount of hype for them to live up to.
Sure. Yeah, nobody's going to live up to this band that you've loved for 20, 30, close to 40 years.
So I don't have much to say about, my history with them or anything like that. But you clearly had heard of them before.
Well, I had heard of them.
And so I'd love to hear a little bit about how you came to arrive at this decision and what your experience with them has been.
Sure. Well, I did pick this band just mainly because it was a time frame that we had not touched on yet. And it felt like we needed, we can't just avoid the 2020s, even the 2015 on. We don't have a band that's like been established in that time frame. We had some earlier bands who just could not quit and released albums, later, closer to this modern time. But this is one that came up recently to me. I don't know if Spotify served it to me or what, but I have not heard, prior to this exercise, I have not heard all of these albums. So I kind of also went into this a bit blind. But I thought this would be a good one. 5 albums, quick. And it was good for me also, I think, to give the catalog a full listen. That was fun for me. And I think I'll probably go back to some of these albums after this. This didn't kill Wild Pink for me. So that's good. So let's jump right into it. We start out with Wild Pink's first album, self-titled Wild Pink, in 2017. The band had been around kind of since 2015 or so. Really, John Ross is the singer-songwriter, brains behind the whole thing. And, he's the one who's kind of running this show. There is, for the most part, there's some artists who play on more than one album, but it's not like we have a set band that is seeing this all the way through. It's really John Ross. So our first album, Wild Pink, 2017. Tom, what did you think of this first album as you listened to it?
So it's interesting, I think, juxtaposing this with our previous band, Tesla, not just because of the what music sounded like in the 80s and what was popular in the 80s versus what was popular, more recently, but also in terms of how, recording contracts and what the budget is for an album and things like that. because we both remarked, I think, about Tulsa's debut, Mechanical Resonance, in 1986, how polished it was. And obviously, what a big budget album it was, right from the jump. This is not polished.
No, by design, right?
This one feels like a demo. I wrote a few notes about it. It sounds like the drums were recorded in like an adjacent apartment, like maybe next door, kind of through the walls. I didn't like how the drums sounded at all, especially on this album, but that's going to be a recurring theme. I also wrote down, did you see did you take note of who did the mixing on this album?
I did not. Teach me, who did the mixing on this album?
It was KitchenAid. That was a joke. No, I don't know.
It was that bad?
I didn't really enjoy this one. Again, it really felt like they were just kind of getting their feet wet here, and getting an album down. And I think there's a certain type of debut that's unpolished that is enjoyable. I would think of like Bleach by Nirvana. It was recorded, famously for $600, very unpolished, but holy cow, the songs are there. It's a great album.
You can feel the raw talent coming through and all
this
that.
One I didn't feel. There's a lot of room for growth in this album. And I mentioned Nirvana. The other thing I wrote down is like Broke On kind of has like that breakdown from In Bloom. Basically just randomly appears in the middle of the song. They do the In Bloom thing. So I thought that was probably the most enjoyable moment of this one for me, but I wasn't too high on this one.
Got it. Well,
how about you?
Set the stage. Yeah, this album, we have to set the stage a little bit. This album opens up with kind of this like off-tune guitar solo and this breathy voice. And the first line of the first album is, we drove by a vigil for a kid that died too young. And I had not listened to this album previously. And so I put this on to listen to it. And that's what I hear. And my instant reaction was like, oh no, what have I done? What have I done? But it picks up from there. It gets better, right? I thought this was interesting that opening, you have that weird kind of short opening track. Then the first actual opening track, we get the first of some Washington DC sports references.
I caught that too. That one jumped out at me. The Cowboys hate the Redskins, or
yeah. Cowboys hit the Redskins, and then I really liked kind of that. I guess it's the third track. Then Great Apes has kind of a stronger sound. It's more flushed out. It's not as kind of breathy and ethereal as some of the other songs are. Playing through a dip-related injury. That is a heck of a song title right there. As I'm looking at, like, what is this? That one I really enjoyed because there's a great guitar breakdown in that one. Some of these are really kind of interesting. You mentioned Nirvana, that they kind of maybe pulled from Nirvana. I heard in this album on the track Wizard of Loneliness, which kind of in this dreamy, the lyrics are just essentially calm down, put your phone down again and again and again. But the tune is the music is pretty much just bass and maybe like you're a drummer, so you tell me what the term is, but like the stick on the side of the drum. Mm-hmm. What are we, like a side click or something?
Like a rim
side
shot.
Stick. Yeah, rim shot, something like that. But you could absolutely 100% overlay the Band of Horses song, I Go to the Barn Because I Like That.
There's a ton of Band of Horses in here, and that was going to be in my comments for the next album, especially.
But
I
like
agree.
Word for word, you could lay those lyrics right on top of this music from Wild Pink. So for me, as a band of, I appreciate Band of Horses. They're a fun one. I actually, after listening to this, I went and put on, the Band of Horses vinyl that we have. I was like, oh, I should play that other album, because I heard it here. So yeah, it was good. I did think it was funny for this one. You'll appreciate this, I think, Tom. Reading a Pitchfork review of this album says, listening to John Ross sing felt like eavesdropping on someone muttering something to himself that he should have said an hour ago. Kind of like replaying things in your head.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it would have been great if I would have said this.
That's funny. Yeah. You bring up, I had forgotten about I didn't know it by title, but the calm down, put your phone down refrain. Mm-hmm. It was funny because I think I was in a grocery store when I was listening to that. And not that that's important to the story, but I was thinking to myself, when the cool indie rock guy says that, people are like, "Oh, wow, that's so he's so right." But when I say it, it's like, "Yeah, okay, boomer." Like,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, we're supposed to pull out the slide rule, like that. When I say it, I'm a grizzled old man like shaking his fist at a cloud. But when he
Right. But
says
that goes for anything. That's not just put your phone down. So, all right. So
but
Wild Pink, then first album, that was a good introduction. Yeah, that one after Wild Pink 2017, we move into Yolk in the Fur 2018. So pretty soon thereafter, we're releasing another album. What did you think about Yolk in the Fur, this second album from Wild Pink?
so this one I think is certainly, I won't call it polished because it's still the production is still pretty minimalist, I would
Mm-hmm.
say, but the songs are better.
Yeah.
There's clearly, he has taken a step forward as a songwriter. Like you just listen to the opening track, Burger Hill, and it's a more legit song than anything that is on
Mm-hmm.
self-titled. So I
Mm-hmm.
immediately took notice of that. Um,
Did you
you
catch
mentioned.
how
Go ahead.
Burger Hill, our opening track, Burger Hill, and our final song, Awesome Frenchman's Joke, they have the exact same guitar riffs and guitar sound. It's like they
I
took the
did not catch
same
that.
music, yeah, to bookend the
Interesting.
album. Yeah, so and then some of the same lyrics in that last track are kind of dispersed throughout. So this is definitely
Yeah.
an album as a whole, not so much piecemeal song by song. When that it was written to be kind of taken as a whole.
Yeah. And you mentioned Band of Horses. I mean, the Band of Horses influence is pretty clear on this album, but it's weird. It's kind of Band of Horses if the lead singer just did Stream of Consciousness. The title track, Yoke in the Fur, um, is like 6 minutes long, and I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
oh boy, like did we need 6 minutes for this? But compare that with was it the St. Augustine? I can't remember. It's a longer title. I can't remember the full title, but something about St. Augustine. That one's 6 minutes, and it actually goes somewhere. Like it builds into this crescendo, and I'm like, all right, this is one that I can see the point of it being 6 minutes long.
Yeah.
Um,
The seance on St. Augustine Street.
Thank you. The Seance on
Yeah.
St. Augustine Street. I
Title
also
as long as the song itself.
I try for a lot of these when I'm not totally familiar with the whole catalog. I really try not to read reviews, but I found myself at a loss, for this one just because I know nothing about the band,
Mm-hmm.
and reading reviews was really the only way to find out anything about.
Sure.
So I tried to listen to the album first, and then read the reviews, and then go back a little bit.
This album was on a bunch of like top lists,
I
top
know.
50 albums of 2018.
Yeah,
like, it
which
was up there. Was that a bad year for music?
Every year now is a bad year for music. So I don't know. I will say, not a huge fan of his voice. I think it's fair. And there are a lot of musicians over the years that have had fair voices and have done a lot with it, either because they've got a killer band or they just know how to use it within its
Mm-hmm.
constraints, like Bruce Springsteen or Bob Dylan or somebody like that.
Yep.
They do a lot with a little. I don't know. One of these reviews, though, described John Ross's voice as, let me find the word, euphonic. And I had to look that word up. And it means like extremely pleasing to the ear and soothing. And I'm like, are we talking about the same guy here?
Yeah, I think that's because a lot of his vocals are just kind of he's not
pleasant.
all over the place.
It's pleasant.
He's just kind of like just this nice, still kind of steady source in the music.
I will definitely a step forward for me, but I've rambled long enough. Let me hear your thoughts on Yoke in the Fur.
Yeah, this album is not one of my favorites. Spoiler alert, it's not one of my favorites. If I had to pick a favorite from this album, I'd say the second track, which is Lake Erie, which is probably the most like upbeat, up-tempo song on this album. Has real full sound, so I appreciate that. Some of them skip for me on this one. I was interested that the second to last track on this, Love is Better. I don't know if you remember this or not, but it has this, like, it opens with this kind of 80s sounding, to me at least,
Yeah.
this like synthesizer, 80s synthesizer. And if that didn't catch your ear the first time, Tom, you'll have to go back and check that one out. Love is Better, because
Yeah.
that part to me, I went, oh, maybe Tom will appreciate this. This sounds like 1986, kind of, perhaps.
Let's not get carried away.
It's a stretch, yes.
No, I do remember that now that you mention it. Yeah, this one was a much easier listen than their debut, I thought.
Okay, so we're getting better. That was 2018, Yoke in the Fur. A couple years later, we move into 2021. So like a whole different world, right? To go from 2018 to 2021, life has changed a bit. They also, Wild Pink has changed their record label at this point. So perhaps that maybe spurs on a new sound. And our next album we have is A Billion Little Lights. So this album actually started as a concept album that was supposed to be this double album all about the American West. And somewhere along, yes. And somewhere,
dude, why did he drop that idea?
Yeah.
I mean, he would have the dad market cornered.
Yeah, right. Somewhere along the way, that idea kind of fell away. But I feel like you can still kind of hear some of that influence a little bit in there. So A Billion Little Lights. You tell me, Tom, what did you think of this album?
So I didn't know that detail. That's fascinating. The title had me scared because it made me think of, I think it's so dramatic, and it made me think of that book that Oprah recommended, and it turned out to be lies, and then the guy had to come on her podcast or her show and, like, you know, publicly shame himself.
A Million Stars Everywhere.
What was it? A Million Little Pieces or something?
Yeah, something
anyway,
like
that's what
yeah.
I thought of.
Yeah.
This one was a lot better. This was actually I thought this was a decent album, and I would listen to it again. I thought the track Overshares Anonymous was like a legitimately good song. John Ross can be funny, you know, at times. I mean, some of his lyrics are pretty funny.
There's some tongue-in-cheek lyrics.
Yeah, he's got. Yeah, he you know, he's got some good observations and stuff. I don't always feel like he can tie them into a cohesive song, but on that one, he does. Like, that was the first time where I really felt like, man, his songwriting really came together on this, and I really liked that track. It almost, like, I feel like at this album's best moments, he almost feels like a modern, like, Paul Simon in sort of like, because Paul Simon does kind of the stream of consciousness thing so effectively. I thought this was a good album. I enjoyed it. I liked the closing track, and I'm blanking on the name now. So
Die Outside.
I thought it was, Die Outside. Yes, I thought it was Sleep Outside, but I thought that was really good too. Yeah, this one was solid. Definitely a high point.
Yeah, this is the album that introduced me to Wild Pink. So if this was your jumping off point, you would probably be like, okay, this decent band, like, yeah, let's give this a listen. So this is what I knew them from initially. You know, I really liked the opening track, Wind Was Like a Train, has this really prominent pedal steel that I feel like there were little snippets of pedal steel in the first two albums, maybe here or there, but it definitely, that the pedal steel becomes like a solid part of the band from this point forward, and that's something we'll continue to hear. Let me see. Yeah, my favorite Overshare is Anonymous as well, which has another great pedal steel part to it. The song is all about kind of like social media and what that's doing to people, and, you know, putting my life on display for everybody else, whatever. Has that great line that I know that you appreciate as well. You're a baby, but your pain is valid too, right? So just an interesting take, I think. Yeah. John Ross is a little bit older. You know, he's in his late 30s by this point, or close to it. So, you know, he's not some 22-year-old musician. So he's more of a okay boomer range, at least getting up there, which is funny. Yeah, we had some of the dreamy sounds from the first two albums in the track Amalfi, which I really like, and I think is one of the more popular tracks from this album. And yeah, that closing track, Die Outside, I also appreciate. So it sounds like we were pretty much on the same page about what we liked and what we didn't like here on this one. I will say one of the singles from this one, "You Can Have It Back." I don't know if you remember that track or not, Tom.
I don't remember that one.
But John Ross says that track was inspired by Fleetwood Mac. And after I heard that, I kind of went back and listened, and I could kind of hear a little bit in the musical opening of that one, but it definitely a stretch, and I would have never put that together on my own outside of, reading that. So yeah, Billion Little Lights, decent album, I think, and we're on a good track. If
I agree.
We're going up from where we started.
Yeah. Worth checking out.
Right. So yeah, Billion Little Lights was 2021. Their next album is ILYSM, which in internet slang for all the youths out there is "I Love You So Much," is what that is short for. Now, in between A Billion Little Lights and "I Love You So Much," Tom, do you know what happened to John Ross? Did you come across this at all?
I read it. Yes. I believe he was diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah, we had a cancer diagnosis here in between these two. So not just cancer diagnosis, but cancer treatment and, all that goes along with that. So I really felt like this next album took a bit of a turn. But you tell me, what did you think as you listened to "I Love You So Much"?
So here's the thing. I am not a heartless man, and I'm not going to trash an album that somebody wrote while he was undergoing treatment and wrestling with his own mortality and all these things. And I didn't dislike it. It is a marked departure from the previous album. Really from every album they've done so far. So stylistically, it's certainly different. This album's a lot. You need to be prepared for this one. I will say a couple of things I did though, and I don't know if you heard this or not, but on "See You Better," there is a line about whomever he is talking about in the song tracing the WWF logo onto a T, and I was like, oh man, that's awesome.
Don't get any ideas, Tom. Yeah,
I appreciated that. As you can see, I am wearing a WWF related hoodie at the moment. WWE, I guess it is now. But in any case, I enjoyed that little nod. I also enjoyed, is it Jay Massis? I never know how to say his name. The guy from Dinosaur Jr.
Yep.
Makes an appearance on Sucking on the Birdshot.
Mm-hmm.
That was awesome.
It makes a big appearance.
Yeah. No, he is
loud.
Yeah.
He's playing that guitar.
And once you hear it's him, it really, you're like, oh yeah, that's definitely him.
You hear it, yeah. This album definitely had a lot more variety in sound than some of the other albums. It felt like, the first two albums, it was like all dreamy, all kind of mellow, that was the whole album was that way. Then we had a couple albums of that. Then we had a more kind of straight, like rock and roll Americana, Heartland rock kind of album. And then this one kind of vacillates in between. So you have moments where it's like you mentioned in Sucking on the Birdshot, where it's this like very strong guitar solo, loud, just kind of like noise, a lot of reverb, whatever, feedback. And then just cuts to nothing.
Yeah.
Mid song. And then you have this very quiet, that, what's the word? What's the word that we're using to describe this voice?
Euphonic.
A very euphonic voice there that just kind of comes through, and you're like, where did this come from? So, and then all of a sudden this wall comes back. Yeah. So definitely this one is a lot more variety. In addition to Jay Mascis on this one, we also had Julian Baker on the song "Hold My Hand," which he's talking about.
Oh, that one's gutting. Gosh.
Yeah. He's talking about holding the hand of the nurse as he's like getting put under to go have this cancer treatment surgery. Julian Baker sings the second perspective on this woman's perspective. Julian Baker is a recording artist in her own right, but also part of Boy Genius, which I know a lot of people appreciate. So that album was a lot to go through, especially once you knew what you were listening to. The first couple of times I listened to this, I didn't know the back story. I didn't know about the cancer diagnosis. And after knowing that and then listening to it, it was like, oh yeah, I hear that now. Like, oh, this
Yeah.
is a lot heavier than I thought.
I'm only going to, like I said, I'm not going to dwell on the negative here. I'm only going to share one thing. And it's only because I read the Pitchfork review and Pitchfork panned this part of it hard. They gave the album a positive review, but the the chanting on ILYSM, oh, that doesn't work.
I think that song simultaneously, I wrote this down. It simultaneously sounds exactly like Wild Pink and totally different all at the same time. Like, I don't know, it's a real departure. Yeah, there's just like this chorale group in the back that's just chanting "I love you so much" as the song plays. It still has a good beat, and it's still, you know, a fun track, I think. This album for me, I really enjoyed the second half, the tail end. So getting into it, you know, was a bit, it took a while to get rolling, but the last 5 or 6 songs I think really are strong. So we've got Simple Glyphs, See You Better Now, which has this weird kind of halftime ending. And then
It does.
it has a halftime ending, and then it goes into this other sound, which then rolls right into Sucking on the Birdshot, which I love that when we have one song just morphing into the next track. I've mentioned that before. Yeah, so that, you know, is really interesting. And then the last track, we go from ILYSM to the final track, ICLYM, which is I Couldn't Love You More, as a nice kind of wrap up to the whole thing. So I will say, I think that in 2022, to still be writing and creating a whole album as a concept and not just a single, and slapping them all together, I think that's commendable, right?
Commendable. Agreed. That's the word I was going to use as well. Yeah, this is one that, depending on your tastes, it's a well-made album. It may be potentially worth a listen. It is worth a listen. It's not, I wouldn't say potentially. Whether or not it's worth a re-listen, I think is going to depend on sort of where you're at and sort of your own
how
preferences.
hospitable you are, perhaps.
Oh, yeah, well, and just I mean, there's no way to say it other than this album's a downer, and rightfully so. I mean, with what he was going through at the time. But yeah,
Just
there's parts that are a tough listen.
Don't forget it. Push all that out of your mind and then listen to the album and see what you think. You hear, you know, I Love You So Much. You think it's going to be this like upbeat, right? Like, oh, this is a great upbeat album. Anyway, we'll move on. We don't want to linger there. We'll move on. So final, most recent album. Maybe there will be more. Maybe we will have to revisit this in the future if Wild Pink keeps this up. Our final album that we will discuss tonight, Dulling the Horns, 2024. This just came out at the end of last year, maybe October, I think, November, something like that. So this has just been out for a few months. So tell me, Tom, what you think about Dulling the Horns.
Yeah. Well, first of all, like, do we know, is John Ross doing okay now?
Well, they're touring. They're touring all over the
place. That's true. They are touring. So I have to assume that's a good sign. So yeah. Best wishes to John Ross, first of all.
Well, listen, they're touring, and I'm going to the show next month, so I'll ask.
I know you are.
How's that?
Yeah. So glad that he seems to have recovered. This is a drastically different album. This is, I would say, they're probably their hardest rocking album, maybe other than their first, but their first is so, like I said, raw and sort of unpolished. That this one is much different because it is polished, but it rocks harder than its predecessors, I would say.
Yep.
There were a number of tracks I really liked on this one. I really liked Eating the Egg Hole. I really liked Clouder Mountain, and I thought St. Catherine Street was the pinnacle of this album. Has a good solo at the end, guitar solo. I like this album. It's an easily digestible, like 36-37 minutes.
Yeah, we're back to quick tracks. Last one, I Love You So Much, there was a ton of longer most of the songs on that previous album. That album
clocked in an hour. That was a long one. But this one, is shorter. The drums I don't think he'll ever get that to a point where I want it. He just wants different things from drums than I do. You know, I have to accept that. But this really feels like, I think, if you look at their 5 albums, and like you said, I mean, acknowledging that they may not be done yet, it really does feel like sort of an arc, you know, and that each one builds upon the previous one.
Yes.
You know, I thought this was the most satisfying listen, front to back of any of them in his catalog,
Yep.
their
Yeah.
catalog.
I there's a number of tracks that I like on this one. I'm glad that you mentioned eating the whole egg, and I'm sure you caught onto all of those. The whole song is like sports, not
Washington,
even
yeah,
metaphor. It's like
Washington
sports
sports. He said, I
history.
think it opens with
The Nuggets
the
became
bullets. No, it's the bullets became
the
the
Bullets.
Wizards.
The
Yeah,
Bullets became the Wizards, and the Expos became the Nationals,
yeah,
and all
yeah.
Baltimore fans never got over all sorts of things. Michael Jordan wore a black beret. There's all sorts of references in there. Yeah, so that was an interesting one. Cloud or Mountain was definitely my favorite track on this one, and I think that one was really cool to me because it wasn't like a linear song. It wasn't the same throughout. It felt like it kind of meandered and changed as you listened to it. Variations in tempo, variations in sound. So it kept me interested in what's coming next. And then that one led right into Disintegrate, which is the next track after that, which has these kind of muddy guitars and saxophone. You're gonna laugh at this, Tom, but as I'm listening to this album, I'm kind of thinking like this is like a modern. I don't know if it was a saxophone in this album or what, but in this track, but it just made me go like I get like a modern Huey Lewis or like Bruce Hornsby vibe here. I don't know.
Huh.
It was very. I don't know why I did that. Why that rang true to me, but that was just something that kind of popped out at me. And then Dulling the Horns, the title track, is a little bit slower, but still fun. So, yeah, I think overall that album, this was a solid album. And I think we're making, I'm enjoying these albums more and more as we're going along. So I hope that they keep producing more music and we see where they go from here.
Yeah, you know, I think this was an interesting journey. Certainly a lot different from any other we've undertaken. Um, and really, this is the first time since we've done My Morning Jacket, which was very early,
Mm.
where we've sort of had, they sort of had these nebulous newer albums that I had never delved
Mm-hmm.
into before. And I think I had some of the same fears listening to those for the first time. Like, oh, I'm not going to like this because it's modern. And to an extent, I was right, to be clear. But I think there were things that I did like, and you mentioned the sports references. I did really enjoy his sports references, and
Yeah.
there were moments of his songwriting that I enjoyed, and I certainly don't regret embarking on this journey through Wild Pink's discography.
Well, now he's all mixed up in your algorithm, so you never know. He may just randomly find you again someday.
Perhaps, although I never listen to Spotify's recommendations, so you know.
There you go. Well, that's why you haven't heard Wild Pink yet.
Exactly.
All right.
Any?
Well,
I was
go ahead.
sorry. I was going to say, do you have any sort of remaining?
Yeah. Final thoughts. I think
Yeah.
kind of what I said before. I will continue to listen to them after this, and I'm looking forward to go seeing them live in concert. I'll have to let you know kind of how that vibe is at the show. I would imagine they're touring in support of the latest album, so it will definitely be a little bit more of an upbeat. It's not just one guy up there droning on, so I think that will be good.
I will say I am curious because clearly he's from this area, so
yeah, I can't remember which song it is. There is a song where he says like being young in Virginia, growing up in Virginia, something in Virginia. There is a lyric. Yeah. So he's somewhere from around here.
I'm curious if this show will be like a homecoming of sorts for him, but I don't know how close to here he grew up. So anyway, I will be curious to hear how that
Yep.
how that
We'll
show
see how
goes.
it goes. And shout out to their current bass player whose name is Arden, which is my youngest daughter's name, and nobody has that name. So that was interesting when I found that out. I was like, oh, cool, that's kind
Yeah.
of neat. So anyway, so out of these 5 albums, we don't have there's not
Mhm.
much room for variety here in our top 3, bottom 1 that we always elect. But let's hear it. What was your number 3 album, Tom?
Number 3, I put ILYSM. Not an easy listen, but it is a markedly better album than what I will have in the bottom 1 and what I will have not ranked. So um, had to put it number 3, even though I probably won't be revisiting that one.
Okay. Number 3 for me, I think I'm going to go with Billions of Little Lights, which was that 3rd album, was my introduction to them. I think after hearing other albums in their catalog, that one, if I was like, oh, let's go listen to Wild Pink, I won't go back to Billions of Little Lights. There's other albums that I would choose, but I still think it's a solid album. So that was my number 3. Number 2 for you?
Number 2 is A Billion Little Lights. I enjoyed that album. If I saw it for a reasonable price, I wouldn't be opposed to buying it. I think Overshares Anonymous is probably, their strongest track overall. So yeah, that would be number 2.
Okay, cool. I think if it hasn't flown out the door, I think that one is at CD Seller. You can go pick it up. You can take a trek out there and go find it.
No.
Number 2 for me, Dulling the Horns for me, track is number 2. That the more recent album, stronger sound. I really enjoy that one, but I think that's my second choice. This was hard for me to pick top 3. They all kind of kept shuffling around in my mind as we went through it, as I tried to reason it out.
It was hard, I agree.
Because you only have one bottom 1. Is that why it's hard for you?
No, number 1 was Dulling the Horns. I did like that album. Like I said, I thought it was the most consistent throughout. He really did some interesting things. I didn't mention this when we got there with distortion on that album.
Yeah.
Some of the guitar tones on there almost sound like Smashing Pumpkins or something like that. They get sort of a very deep, like rumble almost to them, which I'm kind of a sucker for that kind of guitar tone. So I liked that. Like I said, 37 minutes. It doesn't overstay its welcome. That is one that certainly I would consider buying if I saw it.
Check it out again. Okay, cool. Number 1 for me, ILYSM. That one, I really enjoyed that album. I know, right? I enjoy the second half of that album. And not to, spoiler alert, I don't have it with me, but I have that on vinyl. That's my You Got It on vinyl. I have ILYSM. And that second side, it's really strong. And I don't know if it's about, listening to it through the vinyl itself was a better experience, but I really enjoy that one. And that's one, obviously, I will listen to in the future because I paid money for it and, appreciate that one. So that top 3, where does that leave us for bottom of the barrel? Which one? We've got 2 choices here. It sounds like we were pretty much in,
that one was easy. That bottom 1 was actually quite easy. Self-titled is their bottom 1. It's just, not, it just, like I said, it sounds like a demo, and is a noticeable step below the other albums in their catalog.
Well, that's interesting. I actually would choose Yoke in the Fur as my bottom 1. Yeah. Wow. I don't know. It just, that album, I don't think, it didn't grab me. I think it's fine to just put on and have in the background or whatever, but there was nothing that really felt like worthwhile of picking up again. I don't know.
Interesting. I also thought the imagery in the title, Yoke in the Fur, there's something that's just gross about that I just I could never shake off either.
Yeah, all these egg references throughout. Yeah. I don't know what's up with that. So maybe you grew up on a chicken farm in Southern Virginia, something like that. All right, Tom, you got it on vinyl? Not yet?
No. Maybe someday if they don't have like a reissue of Presents and I just like have a whole, I have money burning a hole in my pocket, maybe Dulling the Horns will find its way back here.
I'm telling you, CD Seller has a few of these because I came up on my Spotify recently, and after listening to a bit, Andy and I had been to CD Seller, and I had looked at them like, oh, I've heard the name of this band, didn't buy it, listened to it some more later, and then was like, you know what, I'm gonna go scoop up one of those, and just kind of picked one at random, and had my vinyl purchase there. So there's more. You can maybe that's a bad sign if people are selling them back to the store, but I would not be opposed to getting a few of these other Dulling the Horns. I think maybe when I go see them in March, we'll see if maybe they have a merch table. I'll pick that one up.
Yeah. Oh, let me know what it's going for.
All right. Well, question for you. We always kind of have a bonus question that we like to tack on for each artist, different every episode. Question for you here, Tom. If you are naming your band or your musical act, in this same kind of format that we have here of adjective color, what are you choosing and what does that say about you?
Yeah. So, Wild Pink is taken, I guess. So I can't go that route. But I thought my sort of musical side vanity project would be called Sultry Salmon.
Okay.
Yeah. As for what that says about me, I couldn't begin to say.
Tom has a very nice pair of salmon pants, right?
I do.
The salmon pants come out every so often.
Big salmon fan, yeah. But no, there's some alliteration there, and the word sultry is just criminally underused. It's a great word.
Okay, sultry salmon. I did not see that one coming. And if you ever, start a band, I'm going to remind you of that time. I said for me, I think I would do adjective color. I said, I don't know, joyous crimson or something. I was thinking of a self-descriptive adjective.
All right.
And colors for me are hard, though. We always joke at my house that I can't tell colors apart. All the different shades of red. When you're looking at sports teams, if we're going to reference sports like John Ross is doing here, I can't tell the difference between all the different shades of red and all the different teams. So I just chose, I don't know what crimson looks like. I know it's the color of red, and I chose that. So maybe it's this color, maybe it's not. I don't know. That was really interesting and fun to talk about Wild Pink, Tom. I appreciate you really putting a strong effort into that. And yeah, I'm going to ask you, Wild Pink, are they better than Led Zeppelin?
Well, no, they're not. But there's no shame in that. I mean, there are many bands that are not better than Led Zeppelin. If we're being honest here, there's nowhere on our short, 9 or so bands. What is this, episode 9?
10. No, this is 10.
Episode 10.
This is episode 11, 10 bands because of the Christmas album. So
right.
Christmas episode.
No, well, the good news is they're in the top 10 bands of all time as far as our bands go. But they will slide in neatly at number 10, right behind the Cars, who I have at number 9.
At the bottom of your list. Yeah, listen, I put Wild Pink on my list as number 7.
Oh my God!
We have different. We're different people, Tom. I put Stone Temple Pilots ahead of them.
Way to go!
Stone Temple Pilots.
That's great.
There we go. Then great. Wild Pink, then Tesla, then the Doors. So yeah, I could. I'll go back to this music and I'll listen to this again. Although wait, I take that back though, because Tesla. I'll have to share this here. I did put on, by my own choosing, we listened to 5-man acoustical jam in the van this week.
A fine choice.
So maybe Tesla will move up and when we'll knock Wild Pink down a runner.
Tesla's a great band.
Yeah, for right now, that's where they stand.
Fair enough.
Yep. Well, really, the highlight of this episode is going to be this announcement of the next band. This is always my favorite part.
Yeah.
And, today, as we were
Yeah.
planning to record, it was like, oh, I forgot. We're going to hear what the next album, the next band is. And this is going to be hopefully a good one. Hopefully there's no retaliation here for choosing Wild Pink.
No. And there are a couple of like very self-indulgent bands that I want to do, but Tesla, I feel like, was a pretty self-indulgent choice because it's something that I like, but I understand that by today's standards, hair metal is niche. So I'm going to pendulum swing back the other way, and I'm going to do a band that is on the list of bands that we have to do at some point. This is a band that from day one, I always knew would be on the list. I'm a little nervous because I don't know if I'm ready for this yet. But we're going to do it. We're going to do Steely Dan.
Okay. All right.
That's a big responsibility.
It'll be like a triple episode. How many albums do they have?
They have 9 albums. So it's manageable. All studio albums. They don't have any essential live albums. So we're not doing any live, just the 9 studio albums. And
that will be interesting. I've listened to my fair share of Steely Dan, but I haven't listened to all 9 albums by any means.
Yeah.
So I think that will
even
be
just
one.
The standard 9 albums. I mean, it's going to be a long episode. So buckle in for that one. Bring some snacks, and we'll have a good time. But Adrienne, I want to thank you for expanding my horizons this week.
Yeah, you did good. You didn't put up too much of a fight or too much hatred in the episode itself. So that was good. I appreciate that.
And Wild Pink, good luck on your tour this, in the coming months. Hope it's a great tour. And thank you for providing us music to talk about.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, again, thank you all for viewing. We hope that you'll consider subscribing and liking and comment, especially if this is your first time listening to Wild Pink as a result of this episode. Let us know what your first impression is.
Choose a song, any feedback. We want to hear what it is.
Absolutely. But until next time, remember, everyone's a critic and most people are DJs. Good night, Walla Walla. There will be no encore. Oh my gosh, Adrienne, when you told me who we're doing this week, I got so excited to revisit all my old favorites. Just Like a Pill, Don't Let Me Get Me, Who Knew, and I cannot wait to discuss it.
Coming up next on the world's most genteel music podcast, Courtesy Listen.
You didn't say the name of the band.
Oh, darn. Okay, well, let's do that again. Or we just cut it together. Are those actual song titles, or are those random?
No, those are songs by Pink, not Wild Pink.
If I would have known that, it would have been better. Let's do it again. Do that, and then I'll reference that.
Yeah.
Wild Pink, Tom. It's Wild
Perfect.
Pink.
That's great. Yes, that's great. That's great.
Hold on. The damn cat is still down here.
Sorry, I just assumed that you were this massive Pink fan like me.
No. Okay, let's try it again. This is going to be... I'm like, this will be a quick recording tonight. Not at this speed, it won't.
All right, we're going to start again in 5, 4...